Have you ever thought about an entire culture as a river? A single massive river that's been flowing for over 3,000 years? Well, that's really how traditional China sees its own literature. It's this incredible stream, full of sharp turns, crazy rapids, and these beautiful, quiet pools. So, come on, let's jump in.
So let's kick things off with this amazing little puzzle from the Taoist sage Zhuangzi. Picture this. He's walking on a bridge with his friend, who's a bit of a stickler for logic. And Zhuangzi just casually says, "Man, look how happy those fish are." His friend immediately shoots back with this little chat. Well, it's the perfect frame for everything we're about to explore.
Zhuangzi's comeback was brilliant. He basically said, "You asked me how I know, which means you already knew that I knew." And that idea right there, that's it. That's the key. This idea that we can connect with the world in ways that go beyond pure cold logic, that's been at the very heart of Chinese literature for thousands of years. It's not just about describing the world, it's about really connecting with it.
Okay, so if we're going to navigate this river of literature, we have to understand the currents, right? The deep philosophical currents that really carved out its path, right from the very beginning.
The origins here are just, wow, mind-blowing. Think about it. The very first known writing. It wasn't for laws or stories or, grocery lists. It was for asking the universe questions. They'd carve these characters onto tortoise shells, heat them up till they cracked, and then they'd read the answers in the cracks. So from day one, writing was this profound tool for figuring out the patterns of the cosmos.
And this leads us to a really, really crucial concept. You got to get this one. It's the idea of when. See, it doesn't just mean literature. The original meaning is pattern, kind of like the design in a piece of fabric. The thinking was that literature isn't just a mirror reflecting the world. No way. It's a force that helps weave the very fabric of a good society. Words had power. Words could shape reality.
And pretty soon, two major currents emerged. On one side, you've got Confucianism, which is all about order, social harmony, and making sure words mean what they say to keep society running smoothly. And on the other side, you've got Taoism, which says, whoa, slow down, just go with the flow of nature. Language can actually trap you. And it's this amazing tension, this push and pull between these two ideas that makes so much of Chinese literature just crackle with energy.
Okay, so we have our philosophical currents. Now let's see where they flow. And they flow right into the heart, the absolute soul of this entire tradition, poetry. And I mean, this was not some niche art form. Poetry was everything.
Get this, for centuries, if you wanted a good job in the government, you literally had to be a good poet. You had to pass exams on it. It was seen as the ultimate test of your intelligence, your moral character, your whole being. But it was also the way you processed your own life. The big joys, the deep sorrows, a beautiful sunset. It was both public and deeply personal.
So let's do a quick flyby of some of the heavy hitters. You've got Qu Yuan, way back when, basically the first great poet we know by name, who writes this epic poem after being exiled. Fast forward a bit, and you meet Tao Qian, the guy who famously said, "I'm out," quit his government job, and went to be a farmer poet. And all of this leads up to the main event, the absolute rock stars of the Tang Dynasty.
And these two guys, they are the perfect embodiment of that Confucian versus Taoist split we talked about. You've got Du Fu, the poet sage. He's the ultimate Confucian, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders, writing these heartbreaking poems about war and suffering. And then you have his friend Li Bai, the poet immortal. This guy is a total Taoist free spirit, wandering, celebrating nature, drinking wine, and writing about pure freedom. Duty versus freedom. Conscience versus impulse.
I love this quote because it just nails it. The point of a poem wasn't just to tell you something, it was to show you something. The goal was to paint a picture in the reader's mind, to create a mood, a feeling using as few words as possible. Each word was like a perfect brushstroke. The arts weren't separate, they were all connected.
Okay, so poetry is the powerful main current of our river. But what's going on along the banks? Well, that's where storytelling, narrative, starts to really take shape. And this is where that line we draw between real and made up gets beautifully fuzzy.
So, the bedrock of all Chinese storytelling is history. But not just a dry list of dates and facts. No, this was history with a mission. And the father of this tradition, Sima Qian, his story is incredible. He chose to suffer an unbelievable, humiliating punishment rather than give up on his life's work. Why? Because for him, history was a moral classroom, and the stories of real people were the textbooks.
And from that tradition, you get this amazing offshoot, the Tales of the Strange. This is where the imagination just goes wild. You get everything the official histories left out. We're talking talking tigers, grateful ants, fox spirits, vengeful ghosts, the whole shebang. My absolute favorite has to be the one about the guy who falls asleep and dreams an entire epic lifetime, all in the time it takes for his pot of millet to cook. How cool is that? These tales were like thought experiments, testing our ideas about right and wrong in a world that was way weirder than it looked.
These tales also started getting into the really messy stuff, like love. And there's probably no story more famous or more debated than the story of Yin Yang. So you've got this scholar, Zong, who has this incredibly passionate affair with a woman named Yin Yang. And then he just dumps her. And his reason? Well, it's a doozy. He basically says she's too beautiful and that her kind of beauty is a destructive force in the world.
So what do you think? Was he right? I mean, the story just leaves that question hanging in the air. It doesn't give you an easy answer. It just forces you to wrestle with this huge, timeless conflict between your social duty and your personal desires, what you're supposed to do versus what your heart wants to do. It's a struggle that's just as real today as it was 1,000 years ago.
All right, so let's take a step back. There's this famous poem that talks about climbing a tower to see 1,000 miles further. Let's do that now. Let's get that final, big picture view of this vast, unending river of words.
So what have we seen? We've seen the deep philosophical currents of Confucianism and Taoism that carved the whole riverbed. We've rafted down the powerful main channel with the poets, who had to navigate between social duty and personal freedom. And we've wandered the riverbanks, digging into history, ghost stories, and tangled love affairs. It all flows together, doesn't it? It's one magnificent, interconnected stream.
And that brings us right back to us here and now. Because what this whole tradition really shows us is that literature isn't just a dusty pile of books on a shelf. It's the lifeblood of a culture. It's a conversation that never, ever ends. So kind of makes you think, right? If our own culture is a river too, what stories are feeding it today?